What's up, friends? It's time for another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we're bringing on Rizél Scarlett. Rizél, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing, Jason?
I'm doing so good, and I am getting noise. What's happening?
Me? Oh no.
That's that's what I expected. Why is
I'm
everything
getting.
making noise? Oh my god. Hold
What
on.
noise are you hearing?
Oh, what have I done? I have like a recursive sound loop happening.
Oh no.
Oh jeez. Okay. I found it. Okay.
I want to know. I want to know what you were hearing. It sounds like
I was hearing the stream on a short delay. So like I had shared it in a bunch of places and one of them started auto playing and then I
Oh,
couldn't find the tab.
oh no, that's happened to me before. I'm like, who's talking? Why are they repeating me? I'm like, oh, it's just me.
Okay, absolute chaos, but we are here and it's happening. It's good to go. Welcome everyone. I am so happy that we're here. Let's just try that from step one. Today on the show, we're bringing on Rizél Scarlett. Rizél, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Great. So, I've been following your work I feel like since the day you broke into this industry. It's been so cool to watch you kind of grow your career, and now you're working on amazing stuff with one of my favorite people in the world, Angie Jones. But for people who aren't familiar with you, do you want to give us a bit of a background on yourself?
Yeah, I can give a quick background. Basically, I do want to give a little preface because sometimes people think I'm super junior. But I learned to code in 2018. I worked as a software engineer in Boston at like a couple of startups and stuff like that. And then after that, I switched into DevRel at GitHub, doing a lot of stuff with GitHub Copilot, GitHub Code Spaces, GitHub Actions. And the reason I switched into DevRel is because I had helped start a nonprofit teaching like women of color how to code and non-binary people of color how to code. And I was like, wait, I like coding, but I kind of like talking about code better and like creating content around it. It's way more fun for me. And after 2 years at GitHub, I had a good time, but I had the opportunity to work with Angie, so I definitely had to had to take that. And also, I think the impact I had at GitHub was great, and I was like, I want to go into a new space where people don't know much about it and see what impact I could have there.
Yeah, I think, like, honestly, if Angie Jones calls, you answer the phone, right? Like, but yeah, so I think like. I think we've worked together before when you were at GitHub, but not since you started this new job. So I'm really excited to hear about what you're doing because, to be completely honest with you, this is an area that I have no familiarity with at all. So I'll just ask you the 101 question of what is Web5?
Yeah. To tell you what it is, first I think I'll give like a little bit of background. So the way that I hear people talk about it, and I'm like, oh, this is like makes a lot of sense to me. It's like when the internet was originally created, it wasn't created with the intention of like you don't own your data, right? Like we came out with all of these like open protocols like HTTP, FTP, all of that stuff, and that made it really easy for the internet to be adopted because like it was open, anyone can use it, it's free, right? And then what ended up happening, which like I'm not throwing shade at these companies, but a lot of companies ended up saying, all right, we want to build our own like private networks on top of this, like Facebook or Amazon or whatever. And they created their own stuff. And then that kind of changed the way that the internet is made, or is used, right? Because like let's say even though we think something like Facebook or Twitter or something like that is free, what's happening in exchange is they're like selling our data. So we're using it
Right.
for free, but they're selling our data in exchange to like different advertising companies, and that's why we see all of these ads pop up. And a lot of we're not even realizing that a lot of our data gets sold. Like sometimes when we sign up in the terms and conditions, we're like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm not reading all that, but we don't even know what data is being put out there. So with Web5, we're trying to go back to that situation, or how the internet wasn't originally intended, to be able to like own your data. And I think another problem too, where although that was the original intention of the internet, we didn't all have all that infrastructure in place. Like, I don't know if you've ever, well, you probably have heard Angie's talks, but like she talks about like the identity layer was missing.
Right.
So we're trying to like bring that in as well. And let me see what else I can tell you really quickly. Oh, the W3C, basically the World Wide Web Consortium, for people who don't know, they created these identity standards. They're like, okay, here's what the future of identity can look like for us. And then at TBD, we were like, okay, we can actually make a framework that puts that into practice, right? So they wrote down
Oh.
like the specifications. It's just like a document that the W3C did, where they're like, oh, here's what decentralized identity could be. And then we're like, okay, here's like a JavaScript framework that can put that into place, so anyone can build their applications on top of it.
Okay, so I'm surprised to hear that, because I had thought for some reason that distributed identity was like an invention of not TBD specifically, but like companies in the same space as TBD. I didn't realize that it was a W3C. Is it a spec? Is it like a proposal?
I believe it's a spec. I hope.
Okay.
I'm still new to the whole W3C thing, but so I believe it's a specification that they created, and not necessarily. I think W3C has like different working groups. So you're not completely wrong in that companies that are within the space, but you might be surprised at the companies. Maybe you wouldn't, but I was. I didn't know like Microsoft was into decentralized identity. I didn't know that Okta was. All like there's like a lot of big names, and then there's like even smaller names, and they all came together and they were like, here's how decentralized identity can look, and they like in that W3C working group, and they created that spec, and then our company
Gotcha.
like Web5.
Okay. So Web5 is kind of an interesting name because it sounds like a version. So how did that name specifically come to be?
Yeah. So you might have heard when Web5 came out, Jack Dorsey was like, oh, this is Web 2 plus Web 3 put together, and then they named it Web 5. And I think the way that I've like been able to process this for myself is that like how I mentioned earlier, Web 2 had these open protocols like HTTP and stuff like that that people can build upon, and then Web 3 had this idea of like, maybe we should have no middleman, maybe we should have control over our data, but the obstacle there with Web3 is that a lot of it costs money. Like for you to, a lot of those networks that they put on, a lot of those protocols, they weren't as open and as free. So it made it less accessible for folks, and a lot of it might have seemed even a little bit confusing. Um, and then, but Web5 said, okay, we kind of like this idea that that Web3 had, where it's like, oh, let's own our data, let's have access to it, but let's build on top of Web2 technologies such as
Okay.
like HTTP and stuff like that. Let's build our own protocols on top of those existing protocols. So we don't change the full experience for the user, but behind the scenes, they're getting to own their data.
Got it. Okay, cool. So let's talk about decentralized identifiers specifically, because I think that for many folks, myself included, this is something that like I understand in the most abstract terms what it means when you say decentralized, but I guess in like practically speaking, how does this change how I would interact with the internet, for example?
Gotcha. I hope I can explain this right. All right. So decentralized identifiers are like this alphanumeric string. They just say like DID, and then they have a whole bunch of letters and numbers. But the way that it would behave is you carry your decentralized identifier with you within the Web5 ecosystem. So you don't need to like log in with your username and password. And I like to think of what Will Johnson from Okta says. He's a DevRel at Okta. He always says he hates passwords and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of moving away from that. Oh, I got to remember my password or need a password manager. Your identity is already there right when you open up the web app. It knows like who you are without exposing too much information about you. It has that ID. And the way that is created is it's using like a private key and a public key. So sometimes
Mm-hmm.
people tell me like, oh, can't someone just copy your decentralized identifier and pretend to be you? But they don't have access to your private key. So even if they like copied my decentralized identifier, they wouldn't be able to pretend to be me on the web.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so this is sort of like, this reminds me a little bit of like when we're doing like any kind of authentication on the web now. When we do it programmatically, we've got a client ID, and then we've got a secret key or a secret ID, or we'll have an API key that we can't share, or if we're using JSON web tokens, there's like a secret. And if I'm understanding correctly, the way that this works is like we've got a public ID that anybody can see, and that's like your publishable key if you're working with an API. And then when you want to validate that you are authorized to do the thing, you like hash together the public and private key with some data, and like if the hashes match, then you can prove that it's you. Is it like the same idea?
Yeah, I think so. Cause like when you like print out your or when I print out my DID, there's like a whole document where it has like, oh, this is your private key or public key. This is this information. So it has a whole bunch of stuff in like a little JSON object for you. So I believe it's hashed together.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I think that's so that makes sense. And like I agree with Will that it's really frustrating to have so many passwords, right? And it's frustrating because like for very good reason, your bank login times out after 5 minutes or something, and that's fine until you're like trying to do your taxes, and then you got to log in every 5 minutes, and just like, oh my god, this is the worst. And I feel the same way about like my invoicing software, and when I'm doing like management on like admin stuff that's not even like my deep personal identity stuff. The little login loops of like, oh, okay, I got to authorize with, do I use a username and password, or do I use my GitHub account, or do I use my Google account? Like, how do I log into this thing? And then you get it wrong, and like they don't have it linked, so now you've got duplicate accounts, and it's like, oh my god, I hate this so much, right?
Yeah.
And and then there's other stuff too. Like for a while there, in my last job, they made us use YubiKeys. And like YubiKeys are like little USB things that you can't lose, or else I guess you like that's it. You just got to start a new life. But
I'm laughing because that's happened to me. I lost it, and I'm like, I don't know what to do.
like that's it, I guess, right? But so I find like this idea of decentralized ID is really, really interesting to me, because I feel that is one of the worst consistent friction layers for the web. Is that like if I walk into a store, right? Like if I'm a local at my coffee shop or whatever, they know who I am because they see me. They recognize me. They know my order. Like I walk in and they're like, your usual today? And I'm like, yeah, thank you. And like this friction of like, let me show you my ID so that I can, prove to you that I'm allowed to use my credit card so that I can order my drink. It sucks. Like I don't like it. And so I'm really interested in a world where, I have a computer. I know that I own this computer. I have my phone sitting right next to my computer. I can prove that I own that phone. Why can't we use all these devices and magical stuff to I just want to be me on the internet the same way that I am in person. So is that what I can expect if we start using decentralized IDs? Is like I go to a website and it's like, welcome back, Jason, and I'm already logged in?
Yeah, I actually
Yes.
really like the Starbucks order like thing. Like, yeah, I'm gonna steal that.
Please.
It knows who you are. It'll just say like, hey Jason, welcome back. Just like that. And
Yeah.
oh, keep going. I was gonna say
No, I'm ready for you to start talking about how this actually works. Like I'm really curious.
Okay, cool. So like we talked about, there's like two other concepts that I do want to like introduce within Web5, right? So we talked about decentralized identifiers. Then there's this other thing called decentralized web nodes,
Okay.
which are called DWNs for short. Like people call decentralized identifiers DIDs or DIDs. I don't know. They're like doing acronyms. But basically, decentralized web nodes are like data stores. They're like your personal data store. So like from a developer standpoint, you can think of like MongoDB or SQL, but like maybe from a user perspective, you can think like Dropbox, but like your personal like Dropbox, where if you the thing with Dropbox or like Google Drive or something like that is they can change the terms of service on you. They can lose the data. I actually saw people complaining on Google support that they can't get any data in their Google Drive from after or from before May 2023. They're like, what happened to my data? And
Oh
I'm like,
no.
sucks. Yeah. So like this is something that you take with you. Like your decentralized web node also moves with you and your decentralized identifier. So maybe like on like SQL or MongoDB, you know how you have to like put in your username and your password and stuff like that. You just like give it, it just picks up your decentralized identifier and then you have access to that decentralized web node with whatever information you wanted on it. And
Okay.
then yeah, I should pause before I move to the next thing. Do you have any questions?
No, so I think this is so the idea of a decentralized web node is really interesting to me, and I don't want to rabbit hole too hard on this,
Yeah.
but it harkens back to like the old days of like early internet, where the only way that you could really run a website was if you had either a computer in your house that you kept plugged in and on the internet, or you paid somebody to like store files on a computer in their house or their warehouse. And that's, I mean, really, if we're getting reductive, that's still what we do today. Is we're just now it's just huge warehouses owned by Amazon. But with these decentralized web nodes, like, do I need to have my computer plugged into the internet and on at all times for my data to be accessible? Or like, how does decentralization of data work if we're not putting it on somebody else's system?
Gotcha. Okay, that's a good question. I think you need internet for it. I haven't been able to do it without internet. And I don't even remember those days you're talking about. Maybe I'm too little. But
Yeah, we're definitely showing my age here.
the data is stored locally in your browser memory, and then I think this part I'm a little shaky on still, just letting people know I'm 2.5 months in. And then you have these remote DWN servers.
Okay.
I believe at TBD we have two of them, but that's only made to be able to sync your data across multiple devices. So like whatever you had in your browser memory will be synced with whatever's on your phone or whatever, something like that. But I don't
Gotcha.
know if I can fully answer your question because I'm not sure I like fully understand.
No, yeah, and I think this is I think this is always where I've struggled with the kind of decentralization idea,
Yeah.
is that, you know, if the big push is like, let's get away from these companies like Facebook and you know that are selling our data and harvesting our data, then, you know, we have to put the data somewhere. And it seems like right now the only place to put data is either with GitHub, or it was either with Amazon, with Microsoft, or with Google, which would really be the three companies we're most trying to decentralize away from. But that's the only place you can host things in like a durable way, because everything on the internet seems to be built on top of one of those three systems. And so then when we start talking about true decentralization, it's kind of like, well, do we expect consumers to have like a server in their house that they manage their data on? And I mean, maybe. Like, I guess we all have routers in our house, and we probably wouldn't have thought that was possible before it happened. But that seems to me like if I was looking at like the biggest stumbling block for this technology, that seems to be it when I look at like adoption.
Yeah, yeah. And a comment in the chat that my coworker wrote to help me out. I think it's similar to what you were saying. Ace wrote, the current remote DWNs are temporary since we're still in technical preview. Right now we're only at like 0.8. But
Gotcha.
once live, people can host their own. And then he's like, at the end of the day, services like big corps would probably offer to host these. And like, I know a lot of people question like, why would an organization do this? But I think the idea is that once one organization benefits from it and they see that other people are moving towards that, the other organizations would be like, all right, we need to move to this model.
Yeah, and I think I think probably this is where I see it going is like we're building a standard, right? And we're making it possible for people's data to be portable.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I would ever take the time to like stand up a server in my house so that I could truly own my data.
Yeah.
Probably still going to put it on like an AWS or a Google server. And at the end of the day, like if I know my own lazy self, right? But I like the idea that I could choose to say like, well, I'm going to get it off the Amazon one and put it on the Google one.
Yeah.
And there's no like translation cost. It just moves, right? That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And then one more before, I know I'm like talking so much, but one more thing.
No, all good.
Okay, cool. One more thing I wanted to introduce before we like dive into the code is this idea of verifiable credentials. So we talked about decentralized identity, we talked about decentralized web nodes, and then verifiable credentials. How I would describe it is it's a way of proving you're proving that you have something or like a credential or some part of your identity without showing all of your identity. So for example, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just hearing about this. I'm so excited about it. Go ahead.
Wait, okay, cool. So like for example, let's say like you wanted to prove that you're 21 and you can drink, right? You don't have to give your entire ID and it's like here's my address and my everything. Like you can just have a verifiable credential that had been issued to you by an a big organization or whatever, and be like, here's my verifiable credential. And you might be like, maybe people wouldn't adopt this, but we are already seeing stuff like that. Like people have mobile driver's license that they can go ahead and show on their phones. I just talked to this organization that is doing like verifiable credentials for like your college degree and other academic credentials, and universities have partnered. So you don't have to be like, oh yeah, here's everything about me, but you can be like, yep, I got a degree in computer science, here it is, and stuff like that. I think even in travel, where you're like traveling, it's almost the experience of Claire, but even better than that, because Claire still has a couple of steps in between.
Right. No, I actually think this is the thing that would make me adopt this is if we can get to the point where, I like right now when I leave my house, I have to get my phone and my wallet and my keys. Right. Yeah. And when I go out, I always have to have my phone, my wallet, and my keys. If there was a way for all of this to live on my phone in a singly I'm not giving you all of my identity. I'm just giving you the one thing. And we already do this for certain stuff. Like when you use Apple Pay, you're not giving somebody your real credit card number. You're giving them like a secondary credit card number. So we're already using this technology in a form. Right. And I love the idea of going even further where they have a reader that the bouncer uses at the bar and you just tap it and it either gives you a green check mark for 21 or a red for not 21. And it doesn't you don't have to show anything really. It's just you proving that you are who you are, or that the thing you say is true is in fact true through some authority that we've decided to mutually recognize, like the DMV. That stuff is freaking cool because I don't know, like I love the idea of not needing to hand my whole passport over to someone when I'm traveling abroad because they need an ID. Like that makes me really nervous because you hear these, these are all like the most extreme of extreme horror stories, but like if you give somebody your passport and they walk away with it, what do? You have to like find your way to a US embassy, I guess, and hope you can get home. Like that sucks. Or if you lose your passport abroad, like people do that all the time. And then you've got these nightmare scenarios of like, you got to go to the embassy and then you got to hope you can prove who you are so that they'll issue an emergency passport and all those sorts of things. And like, oh man, I've heard of very expensive, like I made a small mistake, but it was really, really hard to prove that I am who I am. So I had to like FedEx documents internationally overnight so that I could get proof of identity, just send me a new phone and let me log into my Apple account and like, here, look, I'm me.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is the part I'm most excited about as well, because I lose every single thing. Like one time I went to the airport and I was like, oh crap, I lost all my whole wallet. And I'm like, dang it. And then I was like, oh, that's fine. I have Claire. I'll just like scan my fingers. And then why was I chosen for random ID verification? I was like,
No.
they were like, you don't have anything. And I'm like, no, I literally just lost my wallet. I need to get home. And so then they had to like call somebody on the phone, and like TSA had to do this whole process, and they're like, what's your address? What's your father's birthday? And I was also scared of like, you guys know all this stuff about me?
I know, right? Like, all you're supposed to know is whether or not I'm allowed to get on this plane. Like, why do I?
Yeah, so I'm excited about that too.
Yeah. Well, okay. So this is, I mean, this sounds really cool. I think there's a lot here. There's a lot of conceptual novelty, I guess. So if is there anything else that you want to cover in the abstract, or do you think it makes more sense to start diving into the actual code?
I want to dive in, but I've seen one comment from my coworker that I do want to highlight. Angie does have a real life use case for this. She was able to purchase wine using a digital ID, and I know that she's going to be traveling soon using like verifiable credentials. So just putting that out there. Okay, ready to dive.
All right, let's do this. All right, so I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah.
Which I should have had ready already, but hold please. Here we go. All right. So there is our screen. I'm going to move us over here so that our faces are just a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to move, let's see. So this is the DID recommendation. Okay, cool. So it's moving toward a spec, but it's currently recommendation, I think.
Recommendation.
I don't know. I don't really know the terminology that the W3C uses. But so this was shared in the chat already, but I'm going to drop it again. Then we are talking to Rizél today, so let's drop a link there. And let's see, the stuff that we're going to be playing with is all part of TBD, so there's a link to TBD. And one last note before I dive in, which is that this show, like every show, is being sponsored by Netlify and Vetsu Code. They make the live captioning possible. We've got Vanessa here with us today from White Coat Captioning. Thank you so much, Vanessa. And thank you, Vetsu Code and Netlify, for covering those costs. If you want to see the captions, I haven't figured out how to actually pipe them in as closed captioning yet. So check the ticker at the bottom here, and that has the actual link for the captions. I'm gonna let it stream. Oh, here it goes. Look at this. What a great use for a marquee, right? There it is.
I love it.
Okay, so and I'm going to hide that again because that gets a little distracting. And I'm going to ask you, because we've hit the end of my knowledge, if I want to start here, what should I do first?
Yeah, I would go to the quick start guide, because that will give you like a broad, like quick 5-minute overview of how this all works. And then we'll actually build an application after that. So if you scroll down a little bit, okay. The first thing we want to do in your code or in your terminal or VS Code, whatever, is go ahead and like npm init or create a directory for that particular project.
Okay, so I'm going into my new project, and then I will npm init.
Oh, wait, yes. Actually, what? Oh, good, you're on 20.9. Perfect. Cool. So you don't even have to switch that.
Okay, and then I'm going to jump out of this one. Not sure what was going on in there. So, all right, now we're in. We've got our basic project, and nothing in it. It's a brand new Node project, and we're using Node 20.9.
Yes, perfect. Now we want to do npm install at Web5 API. That's like our Web5 package.
Okay. SD. And so we've got our Web5 API. We're at 0.8. And let's see, we're type module. We're not type module yet, so I can do that. Yeah.
Let's add that.
Okay, perfect. Type module.
Cool. Now you want to create like an index.js file so we can actually write some code in there.
Okay, I'm going to just really quickly get init so that it will make this come on, man. I don't want all my stuff to be grayed out.
Gotcha.
How do I like reload the window? That's the one I was looking for. There we go. So now these are here, and I can create a new file. We're going to call it index.js.
Perfect. And then you want to actually import that Web5 package.
Okay.
Perfect. And we can skip all of that because you're not doing React Native and not doing Node 18 or not using Node 18. And now you want to instantiate Web5. And I can, you can copy and paste that and I can explain what's happening, or you can type it, whatever you want. But basically, this method called Web5 Connect automatically will connect you to the Web5 ecosystem. It'll give you an instance of the Web5 object because we'll interact with that, and it'll automatically create a did for you. It doesn't have to be called Alice did. You could call it Jason did or whatever, but it's just like this is your particular did.
Okay, so I'm going to just call it my did.
Yeah, call it your did. Cool. Next thing we want to do, now that we're connected, we can immediately write a message in or store some text in our DWN. So for step 2, we'll see that it's going to tell us to do, scroll down, but it'll say like const record. Oh, you're already there. It was just slow for me. Yeah, it'll say like const record, blah, 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 right? So web5.dwn.records.create is like that method for creating the text that we want. And then we pass in the data, which is hello web5 or learn with Jason or whatever. And then we want to tell it, oh, maybe I should stop for you.
No, I'm listening as you go. So all right. So the data, the data part here is, I'm saying I want to create a record in my distributed web node.
Yeah. And your decentralized web node. Yep.
Decentralized web node. And the actual data is like whatever I want it to be. So does it have to be a string, or can it be like an object? Can I throw anything into it?
Object. Yeah, you can do an object.
Okay.
And then we would have to, it just wouldn't be that data format. It would be like application JSON or something like that.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
You can
so kind of anything that I can send as a content type header would work? Yeah.
You can do a video, a GIF, anything.
Cool. Okay. All right. Okay. Cool. So I've created my record.
Yeah. Next thing we want to do is we can, you can console log it if you want to, that record. I don't think it's necessarily gonna, let's see what happens.
Okay.
I think it's just gonna print out information. Yeah. So this is like your record.
No, this is like some pretty interesting stuff in here because like it's kind of nice that I didn't have to write this.
Exactly.
So this is the DID of the TBD like web nodes?
Yeah. So there's I think so, of the agent. So like every client on the web has a DID. I think if you scroll lower, you'll be able to see your own DID. There's a lot in there though. There it is.
So the author, so this is me.
That's you. Yep.
Okay.
And then it tells you like what method you used for this, the target DWN that it went into, which was yours, and like the interface and all that, the date it was created. Yeah.
Okay.
So, cool stuff. Now you can actually feed your record, and you can do that by just calling like await record.data.text.
Okay. Await data.record. Wait, where did data go?
I think I
think it's just record.text.
Record.data. Yeah, record.data.text. Yeah.
Text. Okay, and is that callable or is that?
Yeah, you can if you want to like store it in a variable and then console log that, and we can like comment out the other console log just so we can like see it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I might have missed something. I think it's a method for a text. So
yes.
Put like
okay. Yeah.
My bad.
Okay.
Cool. You can print that out. See, it says hi chat.
There we go.
Cool.
Okay.
So I even forgot to say, like, one of the things I liked about Web5, like it was easy for me to pick up on, is it's just really using like CRUD operations, and like that's a really familiar like experience as like when you're like doing API calls to a database. Then you can create an updated record as well if you wanted to, which would be, which would be just you do like await record dot update and then update it.
Okay, so we're gonna do updated is gonna be await record dot update, and I don't have to send the data.
No, you don't have to, because it should be. In this case, it's the same. It's
like aware of.
Yeah.
Okay, and I assume that's going to be updated output, so I'd have to read it again.
Yeah. Next.
Okay. So then if we run it again, we get that this is new. So here's a question. Is this being done in the, like, one of the things that, like, when we get into these sort of, well, actually, is this blockchain? Like, are we doing, it's not.
No.
Okay, great.
I think, I think the only part that is related to the blockchain is the did method that we default use, which is called did ion. I don't really know much about the blockchain, I'm going to be honest, but I heard people say it's attached to the blockchain, but we're moving into using a different did method, which is called did DHT that we made, and it's not attached to the blockchain at all. So after that, it's like decentralization without blockchain at all. But like whatever we're doing here, besides that identity you had, nothing's on the blockchain.
Got it. Okay. I also just realized I created this updated, but I read the record. So it's also like when you make an update, that record is usable below without having, so we didn't need this part. We could have just left this out, which is great. Like that simplifies my life. Yeah.
I'm glad you even picked up on that. Like if you printed out updated, I think it would just tell you the status on like, was it accepted or did you get like a 404 or something like that?
Got it. Cool. Okay. So now we've got all of this here. This is looking cool. And it feels to me like this is pretty straightforward. I've got what kind of appears to be a database going on here.
Yeah, it behaves very similarly to that. And the last thing we can do here is basically deleting your DWN, and very simple.
Okay, so we can await record.delete, and then I'm going to try to console log it again.
Yeah, and might do an error because it doesn't exist.
Await record.data.text.
It might give you an error. Let's see what happens.
It does. It says attempted to access data of a record that has already been deleted.
Yeah. So
did it pick this up though?
Let me see. That's weird.
Maybe because you. Oh wait. Oh yeah. Because this is the first one. Okay.
Yeah. So I think what you would do if you actually wanted to like it would print out the status for you if you like saved record.delete in a method, in a variable, and then it would just say like successfully deleted or something.
Right.
Like that. Yeah.
But this is cool too, because I like that the error message told me that the record has been deleted and didn't just say like, generic explosion, like your code is broken.
Yeah, I like that too. So that's it in its essence. Any thoughts before we like move into getting a little bit more complicated? I kind of made it like very beginner, then intermediate, then advanced.
No, I think this is good. So at a high level, we did, the only thing that I didn't see here is we didn't really touch the DID, And I'm assuming that the reason for that is because when we connected, it just kind of like auto-generated one for us because we didn't tell it like, this is who I am, this is who I'm acting as. And so I see a comment from Ace Kid. If you use another device, there'll be a new DID. So at the moment, we're kind of doing like ephemeral DIDs. Like if I close this session and I start a new one, it's gonna create a new DID every time.
Okay, so let me see if I can explain it properly. So if you're always within a particular browser, like let's say you have like a Google Chrome profile, like for me, I have like Rizél at TBD or whatever, that all will always have that DID for me, because it's getting stored in my local browser memory. But if I opened up an incognito window, it will be a whole new DID being generated for me, just because we're using that Web5 connect method. If you like, you can manually create your own DID and carry it across. And then we also have this concept of an agent, which will allow you to be able to like sync all of the DIDs across devices, I believe. But that's still a work in progress of my own knowledge, and I think of the Web5 SDK too.
Okay. No, that makes sense. So, all right, if that's the case, then I think I'm ready for the next step.
Ooh, let's do it. All right, I gave you another link that is, it says like Galaxy Bytes Learn with Jason Byrne book. Yeah.
Here we go.
Yes. So I have, so you can clone this repo, and I have already like built out like a basic but ugly UI.
Okay, so let me get back out here, and then I'm going to use the GitHub CLI. Then we're going to get into the burn book.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. And then I need to actually open this one. Yeah. So I'm going to close this other one. And here we go. All right. So what should I do first?
Cool. First thing,
I guess probably install dependencies, but.
Oh yeah. Let me see. Yeah, just do npm install.
Okay.
Perfect. And then we can go ahead and open up source and the source page is index.js, like so inside of the source folder. And you'll see that I put a whole bunch of code in one file just to make it easy. But you'll see that like I have a couple of methods that like just have console logs, and what we're going to do is like in my readme I have little code snippets. You'll copy and paste it into there, and I'll just explain each thing that we're doing as we go. So yeah, it's a bunch of methods.
Gotcha. No, I like this. I mean, this is okay. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and I could explain what we're building, but I'll let you speak first.
Well, I was going to say, I like this as a way to like teach, because if you have to jump around between a bunch of files, it can be kind of hard to track things. Whereas with something like this, you know, I can just start collapsing things down if I want to. I think I can even like collapse.
Oh, I never seen that.
That's not going to work. I thought it would. Or wait, maybe it's fold. Fold everything. Fold all. There we go.
Cool.
And then you can like unfold one thing at a time, and it lets you kind of scan really quickly. So I like this because it'll let us jump around. But yeah, so I like this. I love that you kind of set up a template for us to fill in, because it does look like there's a lot going on here. And I'm happy that we'll probably have enough time to get it working. Okay,
cool. I'm hoping we can do this and one more thing. If not, we'll just look at the gist of the other thing. Thank you. So basically what this shows is, and this kind of explains basically peer-to-peer messaging, because so far what we did is we store data in our own DWN, but you might, well, at least for me, when I first joined this company and learned about Web5, I'm like, but how would I communicate with other people? Like, this makes no sense to me. But basically, this is going to show us being able to do that. And you use this like concept called protocols, where protocols are like, hey, they decide like what the structure of the data you're going to put in your DWN looks like, and they decide who can interact with it and how they can interact with it. So hopefully you could do all that. If you go to the README, there's a first step in there that you can go ahead and copy. It says like search for the console log that says this log is in init web5, and you'll just go ahead and copy and paste.
Oh wait, I missed. I got way ahead here.
Oh, sorry. Keep scrolling. There we go, at level 2. So we have that. Just go ahead and copy the part underneath it. Yeah. This.
Okay.
And we
going back to my index.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Here?
Oh, yes, right there. So you can replace the console log and paste in what you just copied. Hopefully we have enough time. Okay. What this is doing, again, we already saw like it instantiates Web5 and it creates a DID for us. But there's a new thing that you're gonna see. It says sync 5 seconds. So your DWN will sync between devices and people every 2 minutes, but you can change the synchronization settings. And I made it a little bit faster because if you're going to be like, this is kind of like a chat app, like you send a message to one person or whatever. If you want it to show up in somebody else's DWN quickly, like I was like, nobody wants to wait 2 minutes to send a message.
Sure, yeah.
Right, cool. So we have that part. I hope that makes sense.
It does, yep.
Okay, cool. And the next thing we want to do is on level 3, and we're gonna like look for where we define our protocol. So level 3, and it says like look for this console log. Yep. And we're gonna replace it with all of this stuff in here. And if we take a look, or you can copy it first and then paste it, and then I'll explain. There's a lot of protocols, so you might want to look for this is there we go.
Okay.
So paste over that.
So I'm gonna paste this, and then let's
talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So this is the thing that I talked about, the protocol, where it'll basically define the rules. So in our project, we're going to have a secret message, and that's like a message that we send only to ourselves. We don't want anybody else to see it. That's why I called it a burn book. Like, what if you're like, I don't know, my teacher. I don't know. I can't think of anything. You don't want anybody else to see that. No one will. It will get stored only in your DWN. But then we have a direct message, which you can send it to somebody else. Like maybe you're sending it to Angie, like Jason sends a message to Angie. So we have that. So this is how like the different types in our DWN. But if you scroll down even further, then we'll start to see and it says like what type of data format it is. But now we'll start to see who can interact with it, right? We have this actions array, and it says for a secret message, anyone will be able to write a secret message, but only you, the person who wrote it, will be able to read that secret message. That way it stays secret. But with a direct message in this actions array, it says anyone can write it, but only the author and the recipient could be able to read it. So if you sent a message to Angie, only you and Angie will be able to read it. I cannot read it.
This is like, I like this. This is great because I feel like defining those sorts of permissions is tricky. Like I feel like when you start getting into how to define access control, it can be really challenging to do this in a way that feels good. Yeah. And this is like human readable. Like that's really nice.
Yay. Awesome. Okay. And then I also went into time check. Like how much time do I have left of this?
We have about 35 minutes of like safe time.
Okay. I think that's good. All right. So yeah, I like this part too, because I'm like, this made it make sense for me with DWNs a little bit. I think at first, just like you, I was skeptical. I'm like, but I like this part too. Okay, let's go to the next step.
All right, going to the next step.
And the next step is, okay, so what we're going to do is everything gets stored. Yeah, you can like search for that query local protocol and paste it in there. And I'll just talk while you do that. basically everything gets stored in your DWN, including any protocols that you create. Like literally anything goes in there. But for an application or to be able, or for a user to be able to use your protocol or application, you have to agree to it. It has to get installed into your DWN. You can't just be like, all right, I'm using this. Like anybody could use the protocol because they can be like, cool, I like this, but you have to agree to it and get it installed. But if it's already installed, you will search your DWN to see if it exists first, and then if it doesn't exist on your DWN, then it will get installed. So this first step that I like broke it down to is just searching to see if it exists on your DWN. I know I said a lot. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. And so if I'm understanding what we're doing here, because we've defined a protocol, and anybody who uses this has to agree to use that protocol by effectively installing it. This is going to be similar to the flow where if you are using like OAuth, you log into your account with GitHub, and then it says to use this app, you have to grant like email and like repo permissions. Do you agree? You click yes, and then it takes you back to the app, and then you have access to do those things. So it's kind of the same thing. You're saying like, if you want to use this app, you need to use this protocol. Do you agree to what this protocol says? And then once you do it, now you just get to use the app.
Yeah, basically. Although when you do like try out the app when we're done, I didn't put that flow in, but I did see somebody like kind of create that exact flow that you said. So mine is just automatic. It just calls it.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, we're querying our local DWN, and then it's going to be the same thing for the next step, which is querying your remote DWN. So you can just copy and paste that in. And I don't think I need to like repeat. It's just, you have
Gotcha. So let's go back here, and then I'm going to open up this one.
Yeah.
Okay. So same.
Yep. Perfect.
Oh, with the change of like, now you're querying for your own version of the protocol.
Yeah.
Or you're saying I'm the person querying.
Yeah. No. You're saying, hold on, let me make sure I'm saying this right. You're saying I want to search for this protocol that was created by this did, I think.
Created by this. Okay. Yep. Got it.
Cool. And then next step is we'll just create the methods to install the protocol.
Okay, so we're going to install the local protocol here.
Yeah. And then.
All right.
Perfect. And then same for doing it remote. There's another method. I think I put a little too. So I made this a little while back. I found out that some of the lines here I don't really need. I only need protocol.send, but let's just leave it there just to make sure we don't break anything. Just putting that out there for people to know. All right, cool. And then for the next step, I think that's going to call every single method that we just made. So, yeah.
And this protocol definition, we haven't actually set up yet?
No, we did. The protocol definition is where we said like who can interact with our data and who can and how our data looks.
Oh, that's define new protocol. Right. I remember now. So this is the protocol definition.
Yeah.
And when we get into these pieces here, this is the definition where it's being actually used.
Yeah.
Got it. And then this is our did. Yeah. And then this is where we check to see if we've already installed it. All right. I'm in on this. I got it.
Perfect. And maybe I should explain the protocol URL a little bit. Like if you scroll up before you copy and paste, a lot of people get confused about this. This is not a real URL. Like if you click it, it will just give you a 404. The intention is like if you're a developer, like in the future as we progress, they should be real URLs. But right now they're just like made for identification of like, this is what this protocol is doing if you wanted to share it with somebody, and then also not to like confuse it with other similar protocols. Hopefully that makes sense.
Is there any enforcement for like globally unique? Because I see that you used your domain name on this, which makes sense because you can verify you bought that domain, it's yours, you can prove ownership of it. If I were to create another protocol, like I guess I'm about to do, where I'm going to define a protocol using your domain name, is this going to yell at me for like trying to use the same thing that you've already created?
No, it's not going to yell at you. And I'm not sure if I know the full answer to that yet. Like maybe that is something that's coming. It's not globally unique. It's just like making it unique on your DWN right now. If that makes
Got
sense.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, that makes sense because they're decentralized web nodes, which means that theoretically somebody could use all the same names that I'm using. It's like different software, basically. Like the variable names only can't clash if everything is like using the same system.
Exactly. And I just
Okay,
use my
I got
domain name just to, like you said, just to have some type of standard for myself.
I gotcha. Okay, so let's configure the protocol.
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab all this.
Yeah, grab all that. There you go. Paste that in. And there's not much going, it looks like a lot, but there's not much going on. I'm just calling all the things that we created, like the protocol definition, and then I'm installing.
Okay,
and
let me get the URL.
Yep. I'll let you think, sorry.
Then we've got our local protocols and the protocol status, which is running that query local protocol that we just set up.
Yeah.
Check to make sure that if it didn't work, then we install it.
Yep.
Okay. And then we look for remote protocols, so the same thing again, we just see if we've got it. If it failed, then we install it.
Yep. Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
We search my local DWN and remote DWN. If it's not there, we just install it. Perfect.
Okay, got it.
Cool. All right. Next step is we actually want to write a secret message to our DWN. And this is going to be similar to what we did in the quick start.
Okay, so here is our secret message.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
And all right, let's see if I can reason through this. So we define our new protocol.
Mm-hmm.
We use the records.write that we did earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We're sending in the message that will be passed in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we use our protocol details. The path is secret message, which is one of the ones we defined up here.
Yeah.
Here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Schema types secret message schema, which we put up above, and then the recipient is me because I'm sending it to myself as a secret message.
Yes. Perfect. That's perfectly right. And I think somewhere in the code, I've already defined the message object for you. So I don't know if you want to look at it just to give yourself context. I hope I actually did it already. If you look up message object, let's see. Or let me see what I called it. Oh, actually, it's called construct secret message. And if you open that up, and return. Yeah. So basically, yeah, it's an object that has, it's not just this plain text that we had before. It's an object that has text, the timestamp, who sent it, and I have an image URL because I was supporting even like sending images too. So just so you have context.
Got it. Okay.
Cool. Next, we want to create.
Where am I going? Write secret message. Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so then we're going over here and we want to do the direct message, which I'm assuming is very similar.
Very similar. The only, well, I'll see if you see the only difference.
Okay, so save this. We're going to try the direct message protocol. We send it in with all the protocol details, and then the recipient is who we're sending it to. Mm-hmm. And then we've got more down here, and that is we're writing the message.
Did I make a mistake?
Oh, did I duplicate it?
Maybe, because
I might have hit that twice because that looked like I doubled that code.
Okay, cool. Because I was like, unless I did, let me just double check. Oh yeah. I think I did.
Yeah. Okay.
It was me. But yeah, you can just remove the second one.
Okay. And we have done that, I believe.
Oh, cool. Sorry.
Yeah. So writing the direct message, we're doing our try catch. Good. And just the one of them.
Yeah, just one of them. Perfect.
Okay.
So yeah, only difference is the recipient and that it's a direct message. Next thing we want to do is oh, I have a method in there already that we can look at. It's called handle submit. I already wrote it.
Okay.
And there it is. It's a lot in it, but basically it's just saying whenever you click that submit button, it'll check to see is it a direct message, is it or not, and then it'll go ahead and call those methods where it writes the direct message or the secret message.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And then next thing we want to do is actually be able to read our messages or fetch them. So I have a fetch direct messages and or fetch sent messages and fetch received messages method somewhere.
Let's see. User messages, sent messages.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think I confused myself with the naming, so we can just ignore.
Okay, so in this one, we're running the records query, and our records query uses the protocol that we defined. We've got the direct message schema, and then we go through the user messages by running a promise.all, awaiting the JSON data. Okay, yeah. I'm with you. And then we return all those messages, and otherwise we have errors. Okay, good. And then I assume the next step is going to be the direct messages. There they are.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we got our direct messages. And same thing, running a query. Yep. This time we're querying for... Oh, actually, this is interesting. So I'm running a query for all the records on this protocol. And then we filter promise all map, getting the... How does this know that it's not a... Like this one said direct messages, but this one doesn't have a thing.
Yeah. So I think I think I like misnamed some of them or misnamed of these, so I can explain a little bit more. It's not necessarily like fetching the direct messages and the secret messages. It's more fetching the messages that either you sent or the messages you received. For some reason I was having issues with this, and I found out that like if I didn't specify I think one of them was like from your did. Yeah. So in the first one where we like created the sent messages or whatever, like it says from my particular did. So it was like fetching only the messages that came from myself. But then the other one only fetches the messages that came from like somebody else, like not yourself.
Gotcha. But okay. All right.
This part, like I'm a very messy coder. So
all good. All good.
All right, cool. And then this kind of brought all of them together. Yeah. So I just like put it all in one where I like grab all of the messages that were received and sent all in one method. Cool.
Okay. So now we've got user messages, direct messages. We're combining those into a single array, and then we drop that into our React state.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think anyone needs to do this, but cool. Next thing we will do is, I only wanted to show you the delete message method. And I guess you can look at the handle copy did. So right now, for you to send a message to somebody, you need their did. There's nothing to like really fill in. Yeah, unfold all. Perfect. You need their did to be able to send messages back and forth. I think like better functionality is coming soon, but basically what I did is like you were able to just copy your own did and send it to somebody else because it's such a long alphanumeric string, and then able to paste it in. Yeah. And then the delete message kind of works very similarly to what we did before, where it's just looping through all of the records, returning promise, and then calls record.delete on that particular record.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So do I need any API keys? Do I need any, like, do I have to sign up for a TBD account? Is there anything I have to do to make this work?
You can just do npm run dev. You don't need anything else.
Okay, so this is interesting because this is the point in a lot of tutorials where you would have to like send me to the dashboard and have me get all of the, go get your API key and your secret and set up this thing and configure that thing with your callback URL. And it's pretty cool that this is just going to work.
Yeah.
So let me put this up and then let's see how good my copy paste skills are. There it is.
Go. And can you check the console? I just want to make sure it doesn't have any errors. Perfect.
Clean.
It says that it was installed. Oh, don't worry. Ignore that. We didn't see it, guys. It'll still work.
You saw nothing. Okay, so this gives me my did, which I'm just going to throw in here so that we can see it. And so that's like my identity.
Yeah.
And then I can say, so a secret message, and I'm going to say, Vinny Code bullied me again today. And then I'm going to find an image.
Yay. Sad dog. Aww.
Okay. Then I submit.
Perfect.
Okay.
It is.
So now this is my secret message that only I can see, where I talk about the ways that I get bullied on the internet. So then if I want to send a direct message, I need somebody else's DID?
Yeah. But I would say the best thing to do right now is maybe open up an incognito window. Because I would do it with you, but I would need to be on the same like URL as you, and I don't have a local host.
Oh, right, because we don't have. Yeah, okay, all right, that makes sense. So let me minimize this, and then that should give us 2 side-by-side windows. Let me even these out. There we go. Then we're going to go to localhost 3000.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I actually want to see if we can do like another thing like.
Jeez.
Okay, so now I've got two dids here.
Yeah.
So you can see that like they are different. All right. So then if I copy my did here, I did it, and then I say and then put in the did. Okay. So that's sent.
Okay.
And then this should read.
Press refresh, because I think I forgot to tell you to put the fetch messages in the use effect, or do like a timeout where it like always runs that fetch message.
Oh, right. Yeah, we didn't do that part. Well, this is cool. Like this is extremely cool. We got like a whole setup here. This window is also not. Oh, there now it's the right size. This is dope. Like, and what I like about this too is like I think there are some big like next steps that are going to be kind of tricky. I don't know how to like. Once I have my did, how do I make sure that I'm like using the same one everywhere? So when I go from this website to the next, how do I make sure that I'm still me? Those sorts of things. So I definitely think there are there's more to go, but right out of the gate, this is super cool because I love this idea that if I build my website using this decentralized ID, I'm not doing it in a way that is tied to like, if TBD decides that they're going to pivot and now, they're all in on something else, does that mean that all of this stops working? Like, no, right? Like, is this code all open source, like the framework and everything?
Yeah. Everything we're making is all open source.
Where do I go to look at that? What's the org?
I should hold on. I'm gonna send it because it's a long string. Like it's like TBD 5456 something.
Oh right, I forgot. That's gonna if y'all like really break through, that's gonna go down as one of the worst naming decisions of all time.
Yeah, it's a really long string. I know my team tends to use TB devs if we're going to like create an account on something. But I just sent it to you in private chat.
Okay, so I'm gonna put it up here, and then I'm going to share it in the chat as well. That'll put it into the links on my Discord also. This is okay. So here's all the stuff. We're gonna look at the repositories, and we've got, let's see, docs, and this is what we're using today, right? Is the Web5.js?
Yeah, we're using Web5.js.
So everything that we're using today is open source, and you can fork it, play with it on your own. This is cool stuff. Like I'm really interested in this idea. Like I love the idea of identity being something that I take with me between websites instead of having to create a new one at every website. I feel like we all want this. We're just waiting for somebody to do it in a way that doesn't feel like me carrying around like a USB stick that I can lose, or like, having to show my teeth to my camera for a dental scan or whatever the thing is.
Yeah, I get you. And I think this is like a cool like first step. I did wait. How much time do we have? I'm not gonna make.
We
you
got
type.
probably have like 15 minutes or so.
Okay, I'm not gonna make you type. I just want you to like see like how creating verifiable credentials is. It's in the private chat before Captioner Vanessa.
In the private oh, here, this gist. Got it.
Yeah. I just wanted to show how to like create a verifiable credential. So this would have been like part 2 of like the burn book. Like let's say maybe it's not the greatest example, but let's say you want to say that like whoever sent you the message is a trusted like verified person, maybe like just to like filter between like spam and like a trusted person or whatever. So I created like a verifiable or a trusted friend credential, right? So like the thing you would do is you would grab the did for each person, and like you know how it automatically created a did for you before, like you can instead like manually create it by doing what I did right there, where it says await did key method dot create, and then sorry if I'm talking so much, but then there's like a class for the credential. Like, so I would create a class just kind of giving the format of what it's going to have. So it's going to have me who's issuing the did, or if it was like the state of Massachusetts issuing a driver's license, and then the subject who is the person receiving it, and then for me like the trust level, like this is a trusted person or not trusted, and then we'll pass in that data to it, and then if you scroll even more, if we call verifiable credential.create, it'll just pass in all those values, and then the next thing, oh sorry, let me pause, and it passes
this is good.
friend data, and then the next thing you would want to do is actually sign the credential. So I heard my coworker describe it this way, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Kind of like back in the day when like kings would like sign a decree or whatever, like yes, this person should receive like 100 quids or whatever, and they stamp it. Like this is the credential saying like, yes, I actually am the person as the issuer sending it to them, and then you would like verify that that's actually been signed in the next step, and then it's a little short but also a lot to explain. Then after that, what it does is it gives you a signed JWT token. So you will like parse it just to make sure that the data that's within it is in like what we expected. So we're like validating it and inspecting it. So I'll pause and then go ahead.
So this is like I've been doing a lot with auth lately. So these are all of my analogies, but like when we're doing this, what we're effectively doing is it's a really similar spiritually, if not mechanically, to the way that you like when somebody logs into your site, they are asking someone who is an authority. In this case, the issuer is us, but in like the case of login with your GitHub account, GitHub is the issuer, and you're saying I want this person to have access to this part of my data, and they once you get that permission, they send back the data. And then they sign that data using their private key or your GitHub API key, whatever. And then that gives you the JSON web token, which other people can use. Like they can verify whether or not that token is valid without being able to change the data in that token.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is familiar. This, like, it doesn't. What I'm excited about is because I've never looked at this stuff. I didn't know if we were about to see something that was like completely arcane, right? And obviously, like for anybody who's watching this who's never looked at how auth code works, I feel you. It can be really arcane because there's like, look at all this math happening. Like this, that's the name of math. I don't know what it means or what it does. But once you get your head around this stuff, what you're basically doing is it's exactly what you said. What in your analogy, it's the data is here, and then somebody's using their signet ring to like stamp wax and say like I'm proving this is me.
Yeah.
And it's just a little easier. It's a little harder to forge than a signet ring.
Exactly. And then
we're creating shots of our friendship. Exactly.
I like that. And then the next thing we have is the presentation exchange. This part I have a harder time like really understanding, so I like wrote a note to myself. But basically, this is where you do that, like where I told you, like, okay, I don't want to give you all the information about myself, but I want to give you this, like, hey, I am this age, without you knowing, like, I am over 21, without you knowing my name and where I live and all of that. So that's that presentation exchange where you're giving it to someone and they get just the necessary information.
Okay, so trusted friend presentation definition. The purpose is to verify if it's a trusted friend. And then the input descriptors, we send in, we want to give only the trust level. And we're making sure that they are coming in as trusted. So if I put in this credential using this presentation, it's basically going to either return true or false.
I believe so.
Okay. So that was the thing I was hoping for. I hold up my phone and they scan it and it either shows like a green check mark or a red X, and that means I can go in or not.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect.
That's exactly what you want. And then the next part is like you're actually just using the definition itself. So there's just like methods just validating that definition and saying, okay, it satisfies what we want or does not satisfy.
Got it. And so this is like the code equivalent of scanning your phone.
Yeah, that's the code equivalent of scanning your phone.
Okay. And excellent.
After that, all we do is we store it in our DWN, and then we can read it from our DWN, so that we can be able to use it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, this makes sense. I like where this is going. I think as the DX nerd in me is full of little things like, oh, this could be easier. I'd love it if this was done for me by the API, but it sounds like, we're on 0.8. There's a lot of room for improvement before we even get to the official release, right? So, yes. But this is such a cool space, and it is interesting to see like when you enter a space like this where it's just new, right? Like there's things that feel really familiar, like this. As somebody who's done OAuth workflows, I don't feel like I'm completely out of my depth looking at how this Web5 like DID workflow is. But then there are things that are really novel and kind of like it's hard for my head to process, like, why don't I have to go get an API key from a central authority, right? Like, it's kind of cool that this is built off of the browser itself, and I want to dig more into how that specifically works, so that how do I make sure that the ID that I've created is mine verifiably in a way that somebody couldn't get that ID and then like install it on their browser and fool the system, right? Which I don't know if I'm going to be able to read the math that proves it. It's not like math is not my thing, but
did you want to see it?
It's just cool, right? Like, it's cool that these sorts of things are starting to emerge, and I imagine they're only going to get better. So that takes us about to the end of the time we have for demos. If somebody wants to go deeper, and if I want to go learn about how to, what is the math that makes this stuff work, where do I go? Like, what should I go look at and read next?
Yeah, I would say definitely those repositories, the Web5.js SDK. Inside of that, there is a package called Web5 credentials, and I think you'll see a little bit more. Like the way I've been leveling up in this is one, ChatGPT, because we got like a plugin assistant, and then two, looking at like the actual source code, because I'm like, just like you, there are familiar concepts, but it's a whole paradigm shift for me. So I'm like, what exactly is going on behind the scenes? So yeah, it's nice to like read those stuff. And then the other thing I would do is probably follow us on twitch.tv slash tbdevs, because I've been either inviting other experts within self-sovereign identity to explain stuff to me, or I've been like live coding, allowing myself to like look dumb along with my coworker Ace. Not he's looking dumb, but me looking dumb. And we both like just been building stuff and learning, and I think that's like a good way for people to learn alongside us.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah. I mean, I love, obviously, like here we are, but I love that format. I think teaming up with somebody and just kind of pair programming is such a good way to learn, to level up quickly, to expose gaps in our knowledge and figure out how to fill them. I'd love it as an approach. So I'm super happy to see that. Oh, people want that gist link. Yes. Let me find where that was here. Yeah. Here is the verifiable credentials gist, if anybody wants to go take a peek at that. And anywhere else that people should go check out?
Yeah, our Discord. I just remembered. If you go to developer.tbd.website, there's a lot of stuff on there. There's documentation. You can learn more from there as well. And then we have like a Discord link at the bottom. I think it's discord.com/invite/tbd. But that's a good place too, because you can just jump in and ask questions, and literally anybody from our team. Like there's like some really smart people on there. They will sit down and explain stuff to you.
Nice. Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, I'm going to also send one more shout out to Rizél's Twitter. Lots of great information coming through her page. And with that, let me do one more shout out to our sponsors. We've had Netlify and Vetsu Code making the captioning possible. Vanessa's been here all day doing the live captioning. Thank you so much, Vanessa. While you're checking out things on the internet, do make sure that you go and look at the schedule, because we're closing out this year hard. It's going to be great. So I'm here every Tuesday on my own, just going to code, play. It's going to be a good time. Next week, we've got Cassie Evans coming on, and we are going to make some fun, like holiday-themed animations using GreenSock. It's going to be a blast. Probably her dog will make an appearance. Her dog is named Brody, and he can sing, and it's a lot of fun. You know what? Don't even bother coming for the code. Just come to meet Brody. And then Mark is going to be here. We're going to be learning about Angular. There's a whole lot of new stuff going on in Angular. It's really exciting. So yeah, I liked it. So I'm so interested that I actually got two people from the team. So Mark is coming. We're going to do some Angular. And then Jessica Janik is coming. We're going to do more Angular. It's going to be great. I've also got Steve from the Builder team is going to come teach us about how Quick and Astro fit together. We're bringing Mark Erickson back to talk about the latest major release of Redux Toolkit, and even more. So please make sure you mark your calendars. We've got a Discord, we've got email, we've got calendars, we've got the YouTube, we've got Twitch. You can go so many places and find all of this fun stuff to learn about on the web. Rizél, with that, we're going to call this one all set. Any parting words for the chat before we send them on their way?
No, thank you so much for, well, I said no, but then I had thank you so much for tuning in and being engaging. Sorry if I made y'all's brains hurt, but I'm like really excited about all this stuff.
No, I am excited about this stuff as well. It's going to be an absolute blast. Rizél, thank you so much. As always, chat, thank you for hanging out. It's been a wonderful day, and we will see you all next time.